Okay, hi everyone. So we'll give people a chance to jump into the room. I wanted to say hi. This is welcome to Blackbird Chronicles, the first episode. So the first ever live stream for Blackbird PC Tech. I am still getting up to speed on OBS and how you use it for streaming, since I haven't really done this before. So if there's some things that you think I could improve on, let me know, please, because I really want to do this more often, and it's a really good way to interact with the community that we've built together, and so I'm super excited about that. One thing I did want to kick off with was yesterday. No, it was the 50 series launch day. Blackbird PC Tech hit 10,000 subscribers, so thank you so very much for that. It's been a little over a year. It's a lot more work than what I had anticipated, but it's so much fun. So I'm very, very glad that I started the channel, and I really appreciate all of the support. Okay, that said, let's talk about the 50 series launch. What an interesting launch that was. I'm sure, like many of you, I tried to get a 5090 at the second that things opened. You know, I got into, I think within a second that Best Buy opened, I clicked on the 5090 FE, got into queue, thought, sweet, this is good stuff. I'm in the queue, just relax while I'm checking Newegg, and I was checking the Nvidia store as well, since I'd bought my 4080 Super that way. And after being in queue for about 6 or 7 minutes, dropped me out, jumped back into queue, dropped me out 3 or 4 minutes later, and so I had no luck at Best Buy. No luck at Newegg either, although I did participate in the lottery yesterday, and I'm curious to see, you know, throw it in the comments if you were lucky. The card that was put in my cart was a 5080 from Gigabyte. Not exactly what I wanted, but better than nothing, right? So yeah, that was crazy. I know there was a comment on one of the videos that we all got the 5090 out of stock edition, which I thought was extremely funny. But yeah, it's great. I mean, look, if you can make a product that is in that much demand, then it says something. One of the things I did want to talk about as to why this may not be resolved soon is, if you look at what Nvidia has in front of them, you'll start to understand why there's such an issue. So everyone is manufacturing or fab constrained. So there's only so much fab capacity in the world, from TSMC, Samsung, Intel, and others that have fabs. And typically you need to book that fab space well in advance. So you need to do a projection and say, I would like to book 20% of the fab capacity on that particular node at, say, TSMC. And Nvidia is competing versus Apple and, you know, AMD and Intel and others. You know, Intel on their Core Ultras use TSMC as well. And certain fabs are more advanced than others, right? Don't need to go into that. However, what's interesting is that Nvidia's professional cards that are used for data center and AI, like the H1000, come from the same node as their 5090, 5080 silicon. So the reason that's an issue is that the H1000, if you look it up, sells for around $30,000. You can buy them in clusters and other things, but each card is around $30,000. The 5090 that Nvidia is selling, let's say its retail price is $2,000. If you're Nvidia and you're a publicly traded company and you want to make as much profit as humanly possible, which one do you go all in on? And that's the problem we as gamers and enthusiasts face. if I was Nvidia, I'd make more of the $30,000 card because the profitability is much, much larger. So that's the issue. And I don't see this being resolved in a week. I think this is going to go into March before we actually see, unfortunately, supply increase. And that just opens up the door to scalpers, right? You know, I got it. Scum of the earth. Please don't buy from a scalper if you can. In fact, instead of buying from a scalper, I would highly recommend, if you desperately, desperately need one of these cards, buy a pre-built, right? It's going to be the same price and you're going to get a bunch of other stuff. So that's what I would recommend. In terms of the channel and testing these cards, CES was great for Blackbird PC Tech because I was able to make and build some great relationships. One of them with Asus. The only thing is that the timing from CES to the launch of these cards was not ideal for me, since I'm a smaller channel growing rapidly and building these relationships. So Asus is planning to send me out 5090 and 5080 to test. So I've been talking with JJ there, who's absolutely fantastic. Really impressed with the tour he gave me of the booth, the descriptions, the discussion we had. So I'm going to be working with him and Asus a little bit more in the future. But the challenge of buying the stuff yourself, apart from cost, is really accessibility. And a situation like this, you just don't have access. So I'm working with Asus. I'm working with Nvidia directly. Jacob Freeman, who you may know, was at EVGA, has moved to Nvidia. He's working on getting me cards as well. So that's the path forward for me. I've got a lot of content in the meantime, but that's the path forward. So I picked up, if I can find cards, I'll buy them. But that's the challenge, right? I don't know for certain. But one other thing I did want to share with you, I have, from my time in aerospace and defense, I had a pretty good relationship with the government team at Nvidia. And I'd asked one of my friends to look at the online employee Nvidia store to see what they could get. Now, they will get fired if they buy a card from the online store and a court trying to scalp it. So just understand, Nvidia takes that seriously. I wish, by the way, that they would use their AI prowess to stop scalpers in the first place. That's a whole nother discussion. But the message that was on the internal Nvidia store, right, not the external facing one, was the RTX 50 series will be coming to the Gear store. Please hang tight as we work on bringing the supply over the next few weeks. That's to their employees, for crying out loud. I mean, they can't even supply cards to their own employees. And so I was shocked when I never even saw FE cards pop up on the Nvidia store. So I was completely shocked. That was my primary path, right? But yeah, I mean, think about that, right? If the employees can't even, Nvidia employees can't even buy these cards, it's going to be a little while. So hang tight. Don't go and sell. I saw some Reddits and other things online that people had the remorse because they sold their 4090 or 4080 anticipating they could buy a 50 series. So that kind of sucks, right? Let's see. Yeah, I'll try and keep up with comments as we go through this. I've got a very strong perspective on DeepSeek, having worked in with clearances and in aerospace and defense for a long time. I personally will not install DeepSeek or use it. I think it's basically like installing malware. So be careful of that. The statement about how they train is also quite interesting, and that will bring us down a rabbit hole, and perhaps we can go down there in the Q&A time later. But happy to talk more about that. Just be careful of DeepSeek. Just my friendly advice, right? Yeah. So the comment about there won't be supply if they keep giving reviewers them all. All right. So that's a very interesting point, right? So, in next year, when my channel is much larger and I get the review samples, I'm obviously not going to be complaining. Although what I would like to do in the future is when I get review samples, I'm going to test them. Once I complete my testing, I'll give them away. I think that's the right thing to do. So we're going to jump into Linus and Steve and other things because I think I have some interesting perspectives on that. But one thing, Steve came out from Gamers Nexus and did a paper launch video. And he had himself and multiple employees trying to buy GPUs and then made a video about it, okay? I thought that was a little ironic, given that he gets all of the cards sent to him. And I can guarantee you, every manufacturer sent him cards. He's already shown the FE cards. Asus, doesn't matter that he made the video about the Asus scam stuff. MSI, he's big enough, 2 million subscribers, that they will all send him the cards, right? So it's funny. Let's see. All right. Nope, that didn't work so well. Did I close these down? Let's see. Sorry about that. I was trying to pull up a screen here, and I will bring that. I'll bring that back up in a minute. Let's see. There we go. All right. So let's take a look at this. So I just want to pull up the comment, but let's see. That's still getting used to this. Windows capture is not capturing that. I wonder why. That's interesting. All right, I will try that in a minute. But anyway, on that video, I made a comment that basically said, hey, there's some irony having a large tech tuber who has multiple F5090s and 5080s attempt to buy more with multiple employees to make a video. It literally makes the situation worse. And then there was a comment that replied, right, hey, telling me that's not how irony works, because clearly, why would I know how irony works? And that Gamers Nexus is a reviewer and they can't review if they don't have the product. And I responded, hey, they have the product. So, and I had my comment deleted multiple times by Gamers Nexus. And so I pointed out to them and said, hey, deleting my comment isn't a good look for Gamers Nexus. That shows how you interact with your viewers. I would, if you're going to do something like this, it's probably worth communicating that to the viewers. Not a good thing that, and then Gamers Nexus shadow banned me on their websites, which is fine. Not a good situation, in my opinion, right? I don't think that's a good look. And so, if you're a reviewer that has these samples, I don't think it's a good thing to go out and try and buy them and eat up the availability that's there, right? I personally don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good look. I think it's okay to make the video about it and show the experience, but were they actually going to buy stuff, or were they just trying to get it in the cart? I don't know. I didn't think that was a good look for them, right? There won't be supply. I think 5090 supply after the China. Yeah, well, I mean, it could be the 5090 supply could get better after the Chinese New Year, but and is it possible Nvidia didn't anticipate how strong the demand would be? I would say no. I mean, Jensen got up there famously and said that a 5070 is faster than a 4090, which is obviously not true, but they marketed the hell out of this. It seems to me they could have waited a month and launched this when there was more supply. They knew there wasn't enough supply, and they knew that demand was going to outstrip supply by a lot. it seems to me this is a really good way to anger people and work, and do something that helps scalpers more than anything. So, yeah, it's interesting. Greetings from Portugal. Hi. Portugal must be what, 6 hours ahead or something like that. So, please compare the specs. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the cards that I told Asus that I'd really like to get my hands on is the 5070 when it launches. 5070, 9700 XT. I think that's going to be an interesting comparison to make. And also, my next video, which comes out next week, I'm going to dig into the Intel B770. So I'm testing the B580. I finished testing. I'm going to get that video up tomorrow and start the editing process for that. So it's out next week. But I'm going to tackle the B770 and see how it can compete versus the 4070 and 5070. So I'll make some predictions there. Yeah, so Zach, it's weird that they're asking viewers to lend them 5090s. That's interesting. It's possible. I will guarantee you that Asus sent them all their cards. I guarantee you that MSI did, and Zotac and everyone. However, it is possible that they rejected the package from Asus. Right now, I don't know why they would reject the package from MSI, but that's very weird. And it's also weird if that's true, why they were deleting my comments. I wasn't being offensive. I wasn't swearing. I wasn't, I was simply saying, hey, you should let your viewers know that you have access. They could have easily jumped on and said, we do not have these cards because of XYZ. Case closed. Done. So, that's really odd. I thanks for sharing that. I gotta see what they're specifically talking about. Yeah. No, I mean, I can't imagine that, there were at Micro Center, which is obviously a major chain in the US, it looked like they had 250 cards allotted for the entire population of the US. So I can't imagine that Australia got any cards allotted, which is, terrible. I mean, they must have got some, but it's probably like 10 cards for 20 million people. Not that everyone's going to buy, of course. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that was my takeaway was, why would you delete the comments? By the way, I delete comments when someone jumps on and says, hey, you're an effing this, or you're this, or whatever. I mean, I delete those comments too. So it's your channel. Do whatever you like. But if someone's engaging with me, even if I don't agree with them, I actually find that interesting. And that's an opportunity to learn. Not that I'm saying Steve can't learn from this, or refuses to learn, but it is an opportunity to learn, right? And that's the thing that I found kind of weird, right? Let's see. Still can't get my Windows capture thing. I'll do a new one. Let's see. All right, I'll do a new window capture. I'll call it Window Capture 2, and I will do this. It's really weird that this didn't capture before, and I'll lock that in. But this is the message that I sent originally, and then I got the response, and then I got very annoyed after he deleted 3 of my messages. And I just said, deleting multiple comments that provide facts isn't a good look, GN, but it will make for a good video on how you interact with viewers. So yeah, I took a shot. The reality is you do have all the AIB partner cards sent to you. A sample is probably something worth communicating to your viewers when you make a video like this. He could have easily responded, that's not true. We do not have the cards. Here's why, etc. But the reason I know that they got the cards, they've got 2 million subscribers. Channels with 50,000 subscribers or 70,000 subscribers got these cards. if you really think that these companies aren't smart enough to say, who are we going to send cards to? Are we going to send cards to a channel with 50,000 subscribers or a very popular channel with 2 million subscribers? I mean, come on. Like, that's the whole point of this, right? The reason they send them out is to generate sales. So, now that being said, there's channels, smaller channels. Hopefully Blackbird PC Tech is one of them, where I think the dedication of the viewers, is higher. And you can see that in view counts and interaction and other things. And I see that on, frame chasers as well, right? Like, I know, Doofus, pretty well, spent time with him at CES multiple years. And you can see that he has few viewers, but he has very passionate viewers. By the way, he also has passionate people that really dislike him, and I'll leave that to the side. The only thing I would say is that if you're interacting with someone online, I would say this for everyone, you don't really get to know them. And honestly, my impression of Doofus and Frame Chasers was he was pretty arrogant, and I didn't really like him until I met him, and he's very different in person. So I would just not assume that you know someone, right? Like Linus or Steve or other things, or know their intent. And it just, I think that's a fair thing to do, just in general, right? You don't know anyone's intent. I'm going to get into that when it comes to talking about some of my interactions with LTT and Steve as well. Let me catch up on a bit of the chat. Let's see. I need to see if, yep. Yeah, so I completely agree with wanting to have samples from different manufacturers. I would love to do that, to see how good is the FE card relative to the AIB partner cards, and seeing who has the best card. Is the Asus Astral worth the extra $200 premium over an MSI card or something? So completely agree. What I'm arguing is he already has all these cards. So that's what I'm arguing. Pretty much anything that's available, he's already gotten sent from Gigabyte, MSI, and Asus, right? Now, I don't know this 100%. I'm 99% sure, right? That I may not understand something, or I may be wrong. So that's always a possibility. By the way, everything I say, I may be wrong. So yeah, I think I hit a nerve too. I think the difference, yep, I agree. Yeah, I'm not so interesting. You know, the comment was made is the difference between cards is minimal. I would say at stock settings, the difference between cards is minimal. There are different approaches to, thermal interface materials and quality of assembling cards and things that can make a small difference. But the reality is a 5090 GPU is a 5090 GPU. I did ask Asus if they bucket those, right, and actually take the higher quality ones to sell it. They don't do that. So from what I was told. Now, they may do that with like the Platinum Matrix 4090. They may have done that there. But in general, they don't do that. And I asked MSI too. Maybe it was MSI that I asked. I need to ask Asus. So MSI doesn't do that. And I think that's why you'll find some variability. But one of the problems with the 40 series and the 50 series is that, your overclocking headroom is limited by voltage. And so that's one of the big challenges. You can put in 600 watts, unless you have two power connectors, you can put in 600 watts, and then you end up being limited by voltage. So there's only so much you can extract out of them. I do completely agree with the philosophy of get the cheapest 5090 if you're going to go down that route, or 5080 that you can, right? If you're going to do that. By the way, it's funny. I was talking to my wife about this, and she doesn't really understand the passion that us tech enthusiasts and PC gamers have, right? So, and because I was explaining to her, people camped out for 2 days at Micro Center and there were 4 cards, so they were pretty upset. And this is an interesting phenomenon. And I said to her, I would really love to understand the psychology behind it, because just take away from the fact that, I have a channel and things now. If you just did that, I would definitely want to get a 5090. I don't know why. It's not that big of a performance upgrade from a 4090. I'd be extremely upset that I couldn't. I mean, I really would. And I honestly, you know, I have a family, I have a lot going on. I'm not playing as many games as I used to. So I wouldn't even be using it that much. Like, what is driving that passion or that, I don't know, like one of my friends reached out to me yesterday. Hey, did you get it? Like it is something within our community that just drives us to really want the best. And, you know, and she suggested, well, maybe it's a bragging thing. I never bragged about the components I had. So I get it. If you're playing Call of Duty and you want bragging rights, or you want to be able to increase your frame rate by 5%, 10%, like I can at least understand that you want to get in there and say, I've got a 5090. I'm going to compete. I'm going to be better than this person, whatever, whether that's true or not, doesn't matter. I wasn't doing that. And it still drove me. I mean, it did drive me to start a channel, so maybe that's something. But it is interesting. I'm curious to understand the psychology behind what this is and why it's being driven that way. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So something interesting is I got a question. What's your thoughts on Hardware Unboxed? Can you please bring that back up in the question and answer time? Because that's going to take up, I'm already 26 minutes in. That's going to take up some time. I've got some thoughts and just at a high level, I shared my thoughts in the 9700X video. I thought they did a terrible job of testing the 9700X. The approach that they used, I thought was wrong. I tried to provide that feedback to Steve from Hardware Unboxed. His interactions with people are extremely arrogant, in my opinion. And doesn't take feedback well. So I think his testing on GPUs is fine. He uses Ultra. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He tests a lot of stuff, and my hat's off to him. There is no way I have the patience to test 40 motherboards. That's insane. The amount of time to test that many motherboards is insane. My hat's off to him. Great. I have an issue with how he tests CPU. That's basically it. Don't know the guys. Never met them, actually. I think the other guy was at CES, but I never ran into him or met him. So pretty interesting. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the variance between cards of the same model. Yes. No, I completely understand. And, yeah, they really are. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to see if I had enough cards, you'd need enough and you'd never going to get to statistical significance. But I'm curious to see what the variability of silicon quality does for GPUs. I just don't think it's anywhere near as much as CPUs, where you can get better undervolts and get better overclocks. I just don't think it plays as, that's why I'm completely fine going with the cheapest 5090. I don't care. Right? You're gonna, and you're very likely going to be able to overclock it. And not just that, pull the card apart, water block it, right? You're going to be able to do things. Let's see. Yeah, the scalpers, I just don't feel bad for, camping outside. And look, I can at least appreciate what's driving scalpers to make money. That I understand. That's logical. Right. I don't agree with them. I think they're scum. I particularly had issue with them during the pandemic, where I couldn't get DDR5. I couldn't get graphics cards. I paid way too much for it. It wasn't fun. So yeah, I particularly don't like that. Let's see. I live in Connecticut, so pretty close to New York. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're on a 30 series, the 50 series is going to be a big uplift. What's very cool is that Nvidia decided to release DLSS 4 for 40 series, and it looks like they're doing multi-frame gen as well. Yeah, I the comment about why do I do this? Seriously, dude, like that was the discussion I was having with my wife, and she kept bringing things up. I was like, no, that's not it. That doesn't drive me. I don't know why I feel so passionate about the technology and wanting to get the best components and other things. It's crazy. I mean, it's why I have a channel, I guess. But anyway, so that was, yeah, I'm sure I'm running super super behind here on what I wanted to talk about. So, I wanted to delve in a little bit, just given the time and things. I wanted to delve in a little bit here on, I wrote some things that I wanted to talk about. So I do want to leave some time to talk about the 10,000 sub celebration giveaway. I want to talk about that. So I do want to leave time. It's 12:30. I'm going to talk about the Linus versus Steve stuff a little bit because I want to give you my perspective because I had some interesting interactions with them. And then I'll talk about the giveaway and then we'll do some question and answer. So I'm pretty sure that you're all familiar with, well, if you're not, you can look it up, but you're familiar with the Steve and GN versus Linus drama that started last year when it really started, and I can understand why this got under Steve's skin, where it was a tour of LTT during their conference, and one of the employees took a swipe at Gamers Nexus and Hardware Unboxed. And I would argue that Gamers Nexus tests in a more robust way than LTT, at least at that time. And so I thought that was a very unfair swipe, and I didn't agree with it. But it wasn't Linus. It was one of his employees. And that's what kind of led Steve to make the famous video. And he came out and did his thing. And at that time, I would tell you that I was aligned with Steve. And I actually unsubscribed from LTT. I was that annoyed with Linus and his responses. And I resubscribed I wanted to stay plugged in later, but I think he lost 600,000 or 800,000 subscribers overnight. And Steve picked up a ton of subscribers. So it worked out well for Steve. And at the time, a lot of people were arguing and saying, hey, this was good for Steve and taking sides. I don't know the guys that well. So that was my opinion at the time. And by the way, I would argue that Gamers Nexus was my favorite channel. I bought all of their stuff. I also buy stuff from LTT. I love their screwdriver. Like, that's my favorite go-to screwdriver that I use in my videos. So I've supported both. I've bought backpack. I've bought t-shirts from Gamers Nexus, right? It's all good. So that kind of provides a bit of a backdrop, I guess, for, how I do start the next piece. It was, at the time, these videos came out, they had some back and forth, and then it just kind of died, right? LTT took action, reshaped their company, would have gotten impacted quite heavily financially. At least they shut down their operation for a while. And I think it's made LTT a better site, right? So fast forward now to, what was it, last week or the week before? And Steve from Gamers Nexus. And by the way, one of the things I loved that Gamers Nexus did was the Newegg thing. I absolutely love that because I thought Newegg practices were pretty shady for a while, and I had my own issues with them. So I just kind of worked on my own issues with Newegg, and I ended up getting like a free 3090 or something because I said, hey, I can always reach out to Steve, and they got worried. It was really weird. But anyway, put that aside. So, this died down until a couple of weeks ago when Steve was making a video on Honey. And if you're not familiar with the story about Honey, they were basically scamming people and creators and all of these things. So Steve made this video on Honey, and basically Gamers Nexus is leading a lawsuit against Honey. Now, I thought this was weird because Gamers Nexus had no interaction with Honey. So what really are the motives behind doing a lawsuit? And if you take Steve at his word, he's trying to do it for the good of the community. Okay. So it is what it is. During that video, which was, an hour long, I don't remember exactly how long, but it was long. He took a really big swipe at Linus, which many people said was uncalled for. I completely agree that it was uncalled for. I can pull up the video, but the video is called the Honey investigation, Gamers Nexus files new lawsuit against PayPal and Honey. And he says in there that he's looking out for small channels. And at timestamp of 15:45, there's the segment that you can watch that it goes for roughly 2 minutes. So it wasn't much of the big video, but it wasn't cool. I just did not think that was cool. And neither did a lot of other people. It was unnecessary. And so why bring that back up if your motive isn't to create drama and views and clicks and other things, right? By the way, that's my objective too, is to create views and clicks and get subscribers. Absolutely nothing wrong with that for any creator. That's what they do, right? That's what we do. The way you go about it, I have issues with, but I just didn't think that was necessary, especially since they were friends and that Linus arguably helped put Gamers Nexus on the map, gave him exposure. That's how smaller channels become big, right? Hardware Unboxed got banned by Nvidia. Linus and Gamers Nexus and others jumped in to support them, and they blew up, right? That's how they blew up. So, what happened? So I'll pause there. That basically Steve reignited this feud, right? Linus responded, and I'll get into that. And there's been a bit of back and forth since. So now my story, okay? I did an Asus scam video, and I posted that. So basically what happened was I had an Asus RTX 4090 Strix, expensive card, that was having problems. Like it was shutting down, and I tried solving it, and it got worse and worse over time. So it was degrading. I read online and I saw that there was an issue. So I used Asus service, and I'd read stories about Asus service. So I completely recorded everything. I recorded the state of the card. I highly recommend you go, if you're interested, go watch the video. I got the card back and it was heavily damaged. The IO plate was bent, right? The card was heavily scratched. It was a different card, right? And they say that. I don't have a problem with that, but it wasn't at the same level of quality. The screws were loose. I ended up testing it after a while because I just couldn't be bothered dealing with the Asus service anymore. And it ran super hot. I had pulled it all apart. I redid all the thermal pads, thermal paste, put it all back together. It runs fine now, right? So I was using it actually on my test bench. But I made a video about it at the time. I was very annoyed. It's a, $2,000+ card, and I didn't think that was appropriate. So remember, this is before Gamers Nexus came out with their video. So I published the video on May 3rd. It was a Friday or Saturday, whatever it was. And I sent an email to Steve. Again, 1 week before he publishes. And the email, let me see if I can bring this up. This will challenge my ability to bring stuff up here. Let's see. No, here it is. Yeah, here it is. So let me see if I can do this. That's it. All right. So this is Friday, May 3rd, 1:23 p.m. I guess I posted it at noon or something. And I said to Steve, hey, I've been a big fan of GM for a while. Really appreciate your analysis approach. It's somewhat unique in the world. It just seems to want the highlights. A bit naive, obviously. I'm reaching out because earlier today I published a video on my experience with Asus service, in particular what happened when I returned a Strix 4090, and I gave him the link. I know that you're likely still focused on the EK story, which was huge at the time, right? But I thought this would be something you might want to follow up on with your audience. He doesn't know me, so I tried to give him some of my background. It'd be great to collaborate sometime, obviously. If I could collaborate with GN, that would be great. So I didn't get a response. And 1 week later, Steve publishes his video, and the thumbnail is virtually identical. The title is virtually identical. I mean, the wording, everything. And he didn't mention me at all in his video. I thought naively, I was like, cool, this is awesome. He's going to say, hey, you know, here's an example. Because he showed examples in the video of people that had issues. And everyone he showed in the video had reached out to me to say, thank you for making this video. We've got this issue, you know, let us know how you're going to fix it, and all of this stuff. Okay. So I was ticked off, right? I hadn't been in the game very long and I was ticked off. I was like, are you kidding me? His video actually went viral on YouTube and was ranking on all of YouTube. Like, this includes Mr. Beast and everyone, 7th on all of YouTube, which is insane. It's got 2 million views, right? So yeah, I was annoyed. I was jealous that he pulled that in, and I thought it was a unique idea. But the reality is he was working on this before I sent the email. No question. So he'd already done a lot of work. He was probably working on editing or, you know, the story and other things. So there may be very valid reasons why he chose not to. It would have been nice to reply, because remember, this is before he published. So he wasn't getting overwhelmed by emails with the title Asus scam or Asus service or whatever. It would have been nice to reply just to say something. I mean, he claims in multiple videos that he supports smaller YouTubers, never to forget where he came from. That's what he says. He said it in the Honey video. So I got very annoyed and I sent Linus an email. This is why I said I think I've got an interesting story to tell. And I'll show you what I sent. I read through it and I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal. It's pretty small. I don't even know if you can read it, but let me just say, I sent a note to Linus and I told him what happened. And I said, hey, GN screwed me over because of XYZ. Like, they copied this, they did this, and here's the email I sent. Linus was very cool. Number one, he responded to me very rapidly. And at the time, I had maybe 1,000 subscribers, and Linus has 16 million subscribers. That was a cool thing of him to do. So, hey, respect to Linus. He actually does support smaller YouTubers, and he proved it by responding to me. And he went through and said, basically he said, I got it. There's multiple things that could have happened. And he said, you know, he either didn't read your email and it's a coincidence. It's possible he read your email and just didn't think it added any relevant details. Since he was already working on it, or he read your email and took some inspiration and made a conscious decision not to make mention of it. So, I mean, people always jump to that. I mean, I genuinely think that is probably what happened, but I don't know. That's reality. But what he said is that you won't be able to prove anything, and neither would I. So you got to learn to let it go, which I did, right? Until today, by the way. I thought, hey, this is interesting. Linus said, I have my own experience with Steve's honesty and ethics, and this is way before this second round, but it's not the time and the place. And he said, I'm sorry that you had a bad experience, and I hope that you're at least able to get a bit of buzz from the topic, because my video did trend higher and other things. So, you know, I just wanted to give you that perspective on Linus. That was very cool, right? Very, very cool of him. So I let it go. I mean, what else could you do? I was very annoyed, but, you know, like, you just like, whatever. You just let it go and you sit on it. Until 2 weeks ago, when Steve took a shot at Linus, which again, you got to watch it. It is not cool. And I'd bring it up here, but we're kind of running out of time. And I want to get to this point, which I think is interesting or important. And then Linus responded in a WAN show. And that WAN show, I wrote it down somewhere. And you can, I don't know. I'll have to, I'll put it in the notes, right? I'm going to put all of these in the notes so that you can go look these up. And Linus he really pushed back hard. And he said, I've been sitting on this for a long time and I didn't want to continue this. And he did it at the WAN show and he pushed back. Steve then responded, and I got to show you this because this is fascinating, to Linus's response in the WAN show. And let me show you this. And he responded via text. He didn't do it via video. And it's a very, very long and detailed response. And he said, our response to Linus Sebastian, you can look it up on his site. And he said, evidence included plagiarism, data errors, and editorial dispute. And I'm like, plagiarism? That's interesting. So let me look that up. And, man, I read through what how he's claiming that Linus plagiarized Gamers Nexus. And I'm like, wow, man, for someone that I believe plagiarized what I did, that's pretty rough to call out someone else on plagiarism when you're doing the same thing. That was not cool, which is what triggered me to do this. I was going to make a video on it, but honestly, it brings you down when you deal in drama like this all the time. And I was going to make one. I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to. I'll talk about it in the live stream. And I wanted to give you a perspective on this because I really do think you've got to really look at these things critically, because I feel like I was fooled initially into believing one thing that I just don't think was true. And I look at the responses and reactions of these individuals. And the other thing that happened was one of Steve's buddies, Lewis Rossman, who I didn't really know, he has 2 million followers, did a video called Informative and Unfortunate, How Linus Tech Tips Reveals the Rot in Influencer Culture. And it was an hour-long ramble, and I think he made some valid points against Linus, but there was some really strange stuff in there. Like, he was complaining that Linus didn't pay for his girlfriend to join him at the LTT event. Like, that's a weird thing to complain about, dude. There's clearly some hurt feelings and history there. And so that's kind of where we're at in that story. And Linus is trying to, temper things. But I did want to provide my perspective on that. I don't know. I think it's important that, there's two things that I think are important. One, we really don't know what someone's intent is. And I would argue that try to think that through when you comment online on anyone's posts or other things. You don't know what their intent was, particularly texting and other things. That's number one. Number two, we shouldn't judge people by their worst moments, because I look at that and I say, would I want people to judge me by my worst, lowest moment? And the answer is no. I wouldn't. Lots of things have happened in my life, and I've reacted or done things that I look back on and regret. And so, I think I look at that and in the context of this and think, well, maybe Linus regrets the way he reacted to certain things, but I can understand why he was upset and angry. I mean, this is his baby. He's grown it to 16 million people and sees 800,000 subscribers or 1 million subscribers, disappear overnight. That's shocking, right? And by the way, I've continued to engage with Linus on multiple things, and he responds to me very rapidly. And I appreciate that relationship. I really do. And I'm not saying that he doesn't do things wrong. I still think that Steve's approach to testing is more robust than LTT Labs. I think LTT Labs has improved significantly. But you've got to make up your own mind. I still follow both of them, by the way. I don't care that GN shadow ban me. Don't really care. They make good content. I have issues with other things like the EK story. I think Steve made that worse for employees. I think his videos, if he was focused on the benefits of the employees, putting them out of business, isn't going to help those employees get paid. And there's other things, right? Like, that I've experienced too. So my view is probably a bit tainted at this point, but, and look, Steve just may not have been aware of any of this. So, hey, if that's the case, then so be it. But there's always two sides to every story. So as you look at these things, try to think who's got the motive, right? Who's got the motive and who stands to benefit the most. And probably question why they're doing certain things, right? So I leave that there. I did want to share that. And yeah, and I'm sure you all have, perspectives on this as well. So one thing before we jump into questions, I'm going to try and catch up with the chat. So as I mentioned, thank you all for the support over the last year. The channel has rapidly grown, particularly over the last 3 months, to 10,000 subscribers. What's great, I don't really care about the subscribers. I care that the content is liked and being viewed and the engagement. But the subscribers helps me to get samples, right? I mean, that's the reality. So that's going to help us we grow in the future. I really do want to celebrate milestones like this. And so it's ironic that I'm going to talk about this, but I do believe in redemption. I was talking with Asus, and they're the company that I've been the most impressed by over the last few months. And I mentioned to them that, hey, I'm about to hit 10,000 subs. Would you be up for doing a celebration with me? Because it's really hard for me to send out components and things, right? Because I bear all the cost and the burden, right? And if I'm sending something overseas in particular, the costs add up, particularly for larger components, right? SSD or something, not a big deal. So what we agreed to do is I'm going to do a build with Asus components on my channel. Still working through the exact details. I'm going to run a competition, and it's going to be open to everyone. There's not going to be any requirements other than I've got to partner with some, company that runs competition and randomizes this, and they're going to select the winners, and there's not going to be any requirement. You don't even have to watch the video if you don't want, right? Go sign up to that, which I'll obviously do a post when we do this. And every one of the components that I use is going to be given away. Not the one I use. Asus is going to send, obviously, those components. So it's going to be a power supply. It's going to be the motherboard. It's probably going to be a BTF, which is going to be really fun. The advanced BTF. It's going to be the AIO. It's going to be the case. What else? It's going to be, I'm thinking of the other Asus branded things. Graphics card. We can't do a 50 series. So sorry about that. There's just not a lot to give away. I am working on trying to get a 40 series, like a BTF 4090 to give away, which would be pretty awesome anyway. So I'm going to do that build. I'm going to do a video, and we're going to do the giveaway at the same time. And there's going to be multiple winners, 5 or 6 winners, and you're going to get that opportunity to enter and get the prize. And so I thought that was a really cool thing of Asus to agree to do. I really like their approach to these things and style. It's funny, my interactions with MSI, who I really like their stuff, has been okay. My interactions with Gigabyte, I've kind of soured on Gigabyte, particularly since I had those motherboard issues. I went all in on Gigabyte motherboards, and they wasted, 2 or 3 weeks of my time. And so I've moved away. I'm now using Asus and MSI boards. So that's the giveaway. Super, super excited about that. So question and answer, ask me anything. I'm going to try and catch up with some of these. If you asked a question earlier, can you ask it again now? Because I'm going to try and catch up with this. I really appreciate that, Bruce. I know you're a member too. That's the other thing. I'm working on doing more member exclusive content. One thing I did, I added my detailed DDR5 8000 overclocking. So full list of all of the BIOS options, primary, secondary and tertiary timings that I use to absolutely destroy the latency on that thing. I mean, I got it down to, I forget what it was, like 40 something nanoseconds. It was amazing. I provided those in the membership area. I'm going to do more of those type of things. So I appreciate the members that we have. I'm going to expand that, right? And there's new tools that YouTube is bringing out that allow me to interact more, and we'll be able to do chats and other things as well. Because I find that really annoying that I can't just chat with you guys, right? That would be cool. It's got to be, in the comments to a video, which is good. I mean, helps the video, but I'd rather be able to on the side chat. I think it'd be cool. All right. Yeah, that, it's funny that 9700X video is doing really, really well. And I guess I struck a nerve on that one. So I got to look back and see how I can replicate that. But I appreciate that. Yeah, and look, to the point there, why would you ever need to know someone's intent? No, you never know someone's intent. My only reason to bring that up is that you don't know someone's intent. So yeah, we can formulate what we think in our mind, but that doesn't mean that we know, right? So, I guess in life, it's always good to go through it thinking that people have positive intent and being proven otherwise. So that's always a good thing. I'm pleased that fake FPS were not brought up. Man, that is a rabbit hole that you go down. I did my most recent video. I gave you my perspective on that, so no need to bring that up now. Let's see what else we got. That's you got in the second round of 4090s. I'm very curious. Has anyone had any luck getting a 5090? That's what I'd be curious to find out. Let's see. So there's a question here about any idea what may cause a PC freeze issue after 6 to 7 hours of usage. Not always that, but hard to test. The worst issues to test, issues that pop up after a long period of time, and they're not repeatable. They seem probabilistic in nature. That's one of the worst things. Stutters is one that drives me nuts because I've had stutters caused by many, many things. Freezing is an instability typically, right? So it's an instability that isn't, you're probably on this like very, very fine edge of stability. So you've pushed your memory a little bit too much. And if you run tools to check these things like Kahoo and you run it for an hour and it says everything's fine and then you use it, but it kind of freezes after 8 hours of usage. I bet you if you ran Kahoo for 24 hours, you'd probably find out that that it errors out. That would be the thing I would check. I would go to memory first. That's been my experience that people try to do Expo XMP and then they think based on DDR4 type of experience that it just works, and DDR5, rude awakening, doesn't just work. Don't populate all the DIMMs. If you want to run Expo XMP, I've done a lot of videos on that. By the way, one of the videos I'm going to make in the future is I'm going to make the Intel version of the AMD AM5 memory video. I'm very curious to see how Core Ultra scales at the high end of memory. So I'm going to push it into Gear 4 or 10,000, see if I can get that run stable. I think that'd be fascinating to see what that differences are, what the cutoff is, how linear it is for performance. Be interesting. If you got a pre-order on a 5090, that's good. I couldn't even get an order, so that's a good thing. Yes, I did hear about Trump's tariffs that are supposed to go into effect today. So this is the thing I'm not sure about. The tariffs being on China, does that put them on Taiwan? Or do we consider Taiwan and China to be different? Are the tariffs actually on Taiwan or are they just on China? So, yeah, the reality is that the tariffs going into effect on electronics, that cost will be passed on to us. So, yeah, it's not great. Look, I don't claim to be an economics expert, and there's pros and cons for doing tariffs. I've seen a lot of the videos of people saying it's really obvious. It really depends what you're trying to do and negotiate. If you're trying to negotiate better deals for a country, this is a aggressive way to go about it. It will inherently increase the cost of goods. It has to. I just don't see. Companies aren't gonna. Nvidia's not gonna say, you know what, $1,000 for the 5080. We've just reduced our margin by 25%. We'll suck it up. They're not gonna do that. it's going to become a $1,250 card. That's the reality. So I'm not saying it will or won't. Like, let's wait and see and see how things pan out. It's not like you can go and buy one anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point. But yeah, so we'll wait. It is something I want to dig into just because I'm personally interested in it, to see the what is the psychology behind what drives people like me and probably people like you to need the fastest GPU. And I mean, honestly, like, I've got an awesome gaming machine next to me. It's got a Matrix Platinum 4090 in it, and I think I've played one game on it. It's just, it's also the fact that I benchmark so many games. And by the way, the benchmarking process takes a lot of time because I benchmark games 3 to 5 times so that I average out and I eliminate. Sometimes you get some weird thing happening in Windows. And so most good reviewers do that, right? They don't just run it once. And so you add that up. And so now when you do 1080p, 1440p, 4K, multiply that by 5 in what my benchmark suite is 18 games. It takes some time, right? So that's why my hat is off to Steve at Hardware Unbox. I saw his video on the motherboards. I have no interest in doing that. It's just not interesting to me. I just don't see too much variability in motherboards. And typically the problem with motherboards is it's just a BIOS version. They should all function roughly the same. The features are going to change, other things, but I'm not that interested in motherboards. If you spend over a certain amount, you're gonna get roughly the same performance. So, and if you don't, they need to bring out a BIOS update. And that's why I was shocked when Gigabyte royally messed up the X870E AORS Master and also the Z890. I had problems with both, and it was all BIOS related. Switched to Asus on my X870E, and the performance comes back magically. Like, what the hell, right? I told Gigabyte, they said, yeah, we're working it. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see. So I did make a video on 6000 versus 6400 versus 8000. It's actually my most popular video on my channel. It's got over 100,000 views. I would highly encourage you to watch it because I also talked about how to set all of the clocks. So it's the MCLK, the memory clock, the UCLK, and the Infinity Fabric clock, the FCLK. The UCLK is set automatically when you select. So the memory clock's set automatically based on how you set the Expo timings or using XMP. It doesn't matter. By the way, XMP versus Expo, don't worry about it. Like, it's just what's saved on the module, right? It doesn't really make any difference. So when you set that, you automatically set your UCLK based on the ratio, right? So if it's in 1-to-1 mode and the max you're going to be able to do there is around 6400, it's going to automatically set the UCLK. And if it's in 2-to-1 mode, if you go over about 6400, you're going to automatically need to be in 2-to-1 mode. And the question really comes down to the freedom you have is how to set your FCLK. So take a look at the video. It should help you a lot. It was something, I forget the name of it. It was something like memory for AM5 something or other, AM5 Ryzen based CPUs. So take a look at that. Okay, so this is interesting. Always benchmark offline. I would love to be able to benchmark offline. The problem is some games need you to be online, and that's part of the problem. So where I can, that makes a lot of sense. But you're absolutely right. One of the challenges with Windows, and the reason that we don't use Windows in aerospace, for example, is you need to know exactly what the processes are that are running, so that you can account for them. So that's why you don't run Windows on an F-35, for example, right? And there's a lot of other reasons you don't do that. You would hate to get a blue screen while you're flying along an F-35. But yep, the chips tariff. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's interesting. That chip tariffs will start on February 18th. I'm hoping that's to give himself a little bit more time to do whatever he's trying to accomplish, so we don't actually have to have those. Because I mean, the reality is iPhones are going to go up too. Like everything with the chip in it, washing machines, like IoT devices, thermostats, everything is going to increase. Cars have chips in it. During the pandemic, you couldn't buy cars, not because they weren't available, but because they couldn't buy the chips to put in the cars. So you've got this, $100,000 vehicle that's being held back by a chip, right? So, interesting. So one thing, if I do, magically somehow figure out a way to get 50 series, I'll try and put it up online. But as soon as I do that, they're already sold out. I'm going to keep checking. I think you should too. And let me know if you're able to do that. I guess last thing I'll say, and running over a little bit, but I could do this all day. Last thing I would say is, if you've got a 40 series, I would sit tight. The 5080 is not that much better than a 4080 Super. The 5090 it is better, right? There's no question. That's why I want one. But will it change your gaming experience? I would argue no. Not saying you shouldn't buy one. I mean, I want to buy one. But I mean, when you really break it down, try as hard as it is to be as patient as you can. Stock will come in at some point. But just, try to hang in there, right? Yeah. Okay. So got a question on last few questions, and then we'll call it a day. 9900X versus 7950X. And then I assume the second part is the 7950X 3D. So, I mean, the big challenge here with the 9900X is that it's 6 cores on each CCD. So, you've got 12 real cores with hyper-threading or whatever they call it. You've got 24 effective cores. 7950, which by the way is what my rig is that I'm using right now. You've got 8 cores on each CCD. So to me, now 9000 series appears to me, again, not statistically significant, to have better memory support. So the chances that I've had based on my experience of getting 9000 series chips to work with 6400 or 8000 mega transfers per second RAM is quite a lot higher. So just my experience, and obviously impacted by motherboard and other things. So if you've got workloads that heavily utilize cores, then the 7950X is probably the way to go. But if you're playing games and doing professional workloads, I would go 9900X. And you can see I've got a review of the 9900X on the channel, and when the new X3D chips come out, I'll be reviewing those too. I'm very excited about seeing what they can do. I don't expect gaming performance to change between the 9800X3D and the 9950X3D, unless they boost clocks somewhere or something. So, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, realistically, buying MSRP cards makes sense. Like I said, try and get the cheapest card you can. That being said, the Astral does look pretty awesome. And one of the things that I'm very interested in trying out is seeing if the fan on top, that fourth fan, if we can deflect the air and push it over the memory. That might be very interesting. So I may 3D print something to do that. We'll see. So I got to get one first, right? Yeah, right. This is a first world problem, right? I can't buy the GPU that I want. Like, yeah, put it in perspective. Be grateful, but it is a first world problem. So look, with that said, I really do appreciate everyone joining the first ever Blackbird Chronicles, Blackbird PC Tech live stream. I'm calling it Blackbird Chronicles just because I thought it sounded cool. And I appreciate you joining for episode 1. lots of cool stuff coming up on the channel. The giveaway is going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it. I'll give you more details. I've got a meeting with Asus on Monday to discuss it in greater detail. As soon as I have the details of the actual components, I'll put it up for you. I've also got to figure out what company I'm going to go through to run the competition. Again, it's just going to be put your information in and you're entered, right? So that's it. So it's going to be pretty straightforward. I greatly, greatly appreciate your support. I mean, it was a lot of people ask me, like, are you insane? Why are you leaving like AI at a time when it's blowing up? Why are you leaving aerospace and defense? You've got all this experience there. You got a great job. Why are you doing all of this to follow your dreams and and focus on PC tech and other things? So you've helped me prove to people that it was definitely the right decision for me. And I enjoy this way more. And I love interacting with the community that we've built together. So I'm looking forward to doing these type of live streams more. I really greatly appreciate your support. It means the world to me. And so thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to an amazing year. If you got ideas of things you'd like me to test or try out, let me know. If I can get my hands on them, that would be great. I learn as much from you as hopefully you learn from me. So when you bring something up, and even if we disagree, usually it's something where I sit down and it makes me think, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that isn't the right thing. And I do a bit of research and I try and figure things out. So I really do appreciate you. Thank you so very much. And thank you for joining me today. Have a great rest of the weekend. Bye.